The city of Atlantis had survived 10,000 years beneath an alien ocean, weathered Wraith sieges that should have annihilated it, and crossed the void between galaxies. None of that prepared Colonel John Sheppard for the moment every system on the ancient city ship screamed warnings simultaneously. "McKay, what the hell is happening?" Sheppard's boots hammered against the tower corridor as he sprinted toward the control room, the city's biosensors feeding him fragmented data through his ancient gene connection. The familiar hum of Atlantis had shifted to something discordant, reality itself feeling wrong against his skin. Dr. Rodney McKay's fingers flew across the ancient console, holographic displays cycling through incomprehensible data streams. "We're not in Pegasus anymore," he said, a voice tight with the particular terror reserved for physics, doing impossible things. "We're not even in our universe anymore." The statement hung in the control room like a weapon primed to fire. Taylor Emigan's hand moved instinctively toward her holstered pistol, warrior instincts responding to threat she couldn't see. Ronan on deck simply growled, particle magnum already drawn. 5 years running from the Wraith had taught him reality could betray you without warning. "Explain that in English, Rodney." Sheppard moved to the central console, the city responding to his presence by shifting displays to tactical overlays. Through the tower's panoramic windows, stars glittered in configurations he'd never seen. Wrong constellations. Wrong space. The hyperspace jump we initiated to escape that hive ship, it intersected with some kind of subspace anomaly. We didn't just travel through space, we traveled through dimensional barriers. McKay pulled up sensor data that made his face go pale. The energy signature of local space is completely different. Different fundamental constants. Different quantum resonance frequencies. "Can we get back?" Lieutenant Colonel Samantha Carter would have asked about the physics. Sheppard cut to what mattered for the 200 people depending on him. McKay's hands stilled on the console. "I don't know." Before Sheppard could respond, the city's long-range sensors detected something approaching. Not a Wraith dart with its organic hull and culling beams. Not a traveler generational ship. In the vessel, moving toward them at sublight speeds, had a saucer section connected to an engineering hull, warp nacelles gleaming with technology that felt somehow both primitive and elegant compared to ancient hyperdrive systems. "We're being hailed," Chuck reported from the communications station, the Canadian technician's steady voice anchoring the control room. "Audio only. They're using what sounds like radio frequencies, though incredibly sophisticated encoding." "On speaker." Sheppard straightened, Colonel Mask sliding into place over his fear. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. You have entered Federation space without authorization. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." The accent was crisp, British, carrying authority tempered by genuine curiosity rather than threat. Sheppard glanced at McKay, who shrugged helplessly. Federation? Enterprise? Meant nothing. "Captain Picard, this is Colonel John Sheppard of the Atlantis expedition." He chose his words carefully, military experience screaming that first impressions with unknown forces determined survival. "We're experiencing technical difficulties and didn't intend to enter your space. We're not hostile, but we are armed and will defend ourselves if threatened." Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. When Picard responded, something in his tone had shifted to deeper concern. "Colonel, our sensors indicate your vessel is a city. A floating city with an energy signature our science officer describes as theoretically impossible. I think we need to speak face-to-face." Sheppard looked around his team. Taylor met his eyes with the calm of someone who'd negotiated with countless Pegasus cultures. Ronan's grip on his weapon never wavered, but he nodded once. McKay had already pulled up the ancient database, searching for any reference to Federation or this universe's designation. Nothing. "Agreed, Captain. But let's establish some ground rules first." Sheppard had learned from 5 years of walking through the Stargate into unknown situations. "We'll meet in a neutral location, small teams. We share information slowly. And if either side feels threatened, we disengage peacefully. Acceptable terms, Colonel. We have a facility that may serve. Cargo Bay 3. It's large enough for a shuttle from both our vessels." A pause. though I confess curiosity about how you'll transport from a city to a starship." Sheppard allowed himself a small smile. "We have our methods, Captain. Atlantis out." He cut the channel and turned to face the truth reflected in every console around him. The city's ZPM power reserves showed 73%, enough for shields, weapons, and life support for months. But the dimensional barrier they'd crossed had destabilized local subspace. Every sensor sweep showed it clearly. The breach was collapsing, and when it sealed, Atlantis would be trapped in this universe permanently. Or they could try to force their way back through while it remained open, potentially destroying the city and everyone aboard. "Get me Dr. Zelenka," Sheppard ordered. "And pull everyone off non-essential duties. If we're meeting these Federation people, I want to know everything about them our sensors can tell us first." Through the tower windows, the Enterprise grew larger against the alien stars. Somewhere in the Pegasus galaxy they'd left behind, the Wraith still culled human worlds. Sheppard had abandoned his post before, ancient database downloads and emergency rescues, but never by choice, never knowing he might not return. The city hummed beneath his feet, ancient technology responding to his unconscious anxiety. Atlantis had crossed universes to save itself. Now Sheppard had to decide if salvation meant staying where it was safe or fighting back to the war they'd left unfinished. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Indeed, the puddle jumper descended through Enterprise's shuttle bay force field with characteristic ancient grace, its cloak disengaging only when Sheppard decided these Federation people deserved to see what transported them. The shimmer of revealing technology drew audible gasps from the Enterprise crew assembled in Cargo Bay 3. Picard stood at the center of a small delegation, hands clasped behind his back, in a posture that reminded Sheppard of General Landry, command authority worn comfortably. Beside him, an android with pale golden skin observed with unblinking fascination. A Klingon security officer radiated controlled aggression, and a woman in medical blue carried herself with the particular competence of chief physicians across universes. "Cloaking technology," the android stated, head tilting with mechanical precision. "Fascinating. Our sensors detected your approach only through gravimetric distortion. Data, please." Picard's tone held gentle admonishment before he stepped forward, extending his hand to Sheppard. "Colonel, welcome aboard the Enterprise. I'm Captain Jean-Luc Picard. This is Commander Data, my second officer, Lieutenant Worf, Chief of Security, and Dr. Beverly Crusher." Sheppard shook the offered hand, Earth customs surviving across dimensional barriers. "Captain, my team, Major Lorne, Dr. McKay, Taylor Emigan, and Ronan Dex." He deliberately kept Taylor and Ronan in the lineup, despite McKay's protests about diplomatic overload. If negotiations went south, he wanted shooters he trusted. Worf's eyes fixed on Ronan's particle magnum and the multiple knives visible across his tactical vest. But the Satadan returned the scrutiny with the flat stare of someone who'd survived 7 years as Wraith prey. The Klingon's lip curled. Not quite a smile, but something approaching respect. "Your vessel," Data began, his positronic brain apparently unable to contain curiosity, "exhibits technology centuries beyond Federation capabilities. The power generation alone suggests zero-point energy extraction. May I inquire as to your point of origin?" McKay opened his mouth, undoubtedly prepared to launch into detailed explanation, but Sheppard cut him off. "Different galaxy, different universe, apparently. We were running from hostiles when our hyperdrive intersected with what Dr. McKay calls a dimensional anomaly." "Hyperspace transit." Picard's eyebrows rose fractionally. "We use warp drive for faster-than-light travel. Hyperspace travel has been theorized but never achieved. And you say you're from another universe entirely?" "The sensor readings are conclusive, Captain," Data confirmed, attention still locked on the puddle jumper. "Local space exhibits quantum signatures inconsistent with their hull composition. They are, quite literally, out of phase with our reality. Which means we need to get back before the dimensional breach collapses," McKay interjected, patience with diplomatic niceties exhausted. "We're talking about 72 hours maximum before the barriers reseal completely." After that, we're stuck here permanently. Silence descended on the cargo bay. Crusher's expression shifted to sympathy. Worf remained impassive, though his hand no longer hovered near his phaser. Picard exchanged a glance with Data that spoke of command decisions and calculated risks. Perhaps we should begin with why you were running, Picard suggested, gesturing toward a conference table his crew had assembled. In my experience, the nature of one's enemies reveals much about character. They settled around the table, Federation and Atlantis expedition eyeing each other across cultural and dimensional divides. Taylor spoke first, voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of Pegasus history. We were fleeing the Wraith. They are a species that feeds on human life force, draining years from their victims in moments. For millennia, they have culled the galaxy we come from, treating humanity as livestock. Her eyes held memories of villages destroyed, people taken screaming into dart ships. Yet Atlantis was built by the ancients as a city of science and exploration. It became our fortress against extinction. Crusher's face went pale. My God, an entire species that preys on humans? They view us as food, Ronan added bluntly. I was a runner. They tagged me and hunted me for sport across dozens of worlds. 7 years before Atlantis found me. Worf leaned forward slightly, warrior recognizing warrior. And you fought them. We kill them whenever possible, Sheppard confirmed. Ancient weapons are effective. Drone technology, directed energy shields, advanced sensors. But the Wraith have numbers, thousands of hive ships. We've been holding them off, protecting human worlds, searching for anything that might give us an edge. Data's fingers steepled, processing implications. A perpetual war of survival against vastly superior numbers. Your military organization makes considerably more sense now, as does your vessel's armament. Captain, McKay pulled up a tablet displaying Atlantis's current status. Our city is powered by zero-point modules, ancient technology that extracts energy from quantum vacuum. We have 3 partially depleted ZPMs, providing approximately 73% of full power capacity. Enough to defend ourselves if threatened, but we'd prefer not to demonstrate our weapons systems. A preference we share, Doctor. Picard's tone carried both reassurance and warning. The Federation is dedicated to peaceful exploration and diplomacy. We have defended ourselves when necessary, but we do not seek conflict. Must be nice, Ronan muttered. Taylor placed a restraining hand on his arm. Sheppard watched Picard process the cultural disconnect. The Enterprise crew saw a city of refugees fleeing genocide. His own people saw potential enemies who'd never faced real predators. Soft diplomats playing at exploration while Wraith culled worlds. We should share sensor data, Data suggested, diplomatic programming smoothing the tension. If Dr. McKay is correct about the dimensional breach timeline, understanding its mechanics is paramount. Agreed. McKay brightened at the prospect of collaborative science, competitive instincts temporarily subdued by physics problems. Though I should warn you, ancient technology operates on principles that might seem like magic to... He caught Sheppard's glare. To less advanced civilizations. No offense. Picard smiled thinly. None taken, Doctor, though I suspect we may surprise you. The Enterprise's main engineering section gleamed with ordered efficiency that made McKay simultaneously impressed and irritated. Geordi LaForge adjusted his visor, the cybernetic implant allowing him to see across electromagnetic spectrums as he studied the ancient tablet McKay had provided. Your power distribution network is beautiful, Geordi admitted, golden interface reflecting holographic ancient schematics. Completely non-linear, adaptive routing, self-healing conduits. We've theorized systems like this, but the materials science alone... Yes, the ancients were very advanced. McKay waved dismissively, though his ego preened at the recognition. The relevant point is that Atlantis's hyperdrive punched through 7 layers of dimensional membrane when it intersected your subspace. The breach is hemorrhaging exotic particles into both universes. Collapse is inevitable. Data stood at a nearby console, processing terabytes of sensor data with Android efficiency. The decay rate suggests 68.3 hours before complete barrier reformation. However, the energy expenditure required to force passage back through a collapsing dimensional aperture would be catastrophic, McKay finished. We'd need to channel every erg of power from our ZPMs simultaneously. Shields, weapons, life support, everything goes dark for the transit attempt. And if we miscalculate by even 0.03%, Atlantis gets sheared in half across dimensional boundaries. Geordi winced. 200 people aboard? 214 as of this morning. McKay's hands stilled on his tablet. Plus the city itself. You'd 10,000 years of ancient history, the most advanced outpost of their civilization still intact. In the Enterprise's observation lounge, Sheppard faced different challenges. Picard sat across from him, Earl Grey tea steaming between them, while Commander William Riker and Counselor Deanna Troi observed with the practiced assessment of experienced officers. Your military ranks are recognizable, Picard noted, but your command structure seems unusual. A colonel leading a scientific expedition? The expedition was supposed to be research-focused, Sheppard admitted. Archaeologists, linguists, scientists studying ancient technology. Then we woke the Wraith. He sipped his coffee. Real coffee, not the recycled substitute Atlantis had endured for years. It turns out ancient cities need soldiers more than they need academics when the enemy wants to feed on everyone aboard. Troi leaned forward, empathic abilities clearly detecting emotional undercurrents. You carry guilt about that decision, about militarizing the expedition. Sheppard met her eyes, Betazoid perception cutting through command masks. We lost people because we weren't ready for war. Good people who signed up to study ruins, not fight for survival. His jaw tightened. I made sure we'd never be unprepared again. The Federation operates differently, Picard said carefully. Starfleet is primarily an exploratory and scientific organization. We maintain defensive capabilities, but our mandate is peaceful contact and discovery. How's that working out? Sheppard's tone sharpened. Because in Pegasus, on peaceful contact means the Wraith learn which worlds have the most humans to cull. Riker straightened, defensive of Federation ideals. We've encountered hostile species, the Borg, the Dominion, but we don't assume every first contact is a threat. The Borg, Sheppard repeated, recalling McKay's briefing on Enterprise's database. Cybernetic collective that assimilates entire civilizations. Sounds exactly like assuming every contact isn't a threat worked perfectly. Tension crystallized in the observation lounge. Picard's expression remained neutral, but his fingers tightened fractionally on his teacup. Troi's empathic senses practically broadcast the clash between Starfleet's exploratory optimism and Atlantis's survival pragmatism. We have faced darkness, Colonel, Picard said quietly. I have personally been assimilated by the Borg. I have ordered the deaths of crew members to prevent greater catastrophe. The Federation's commitment to peaceful exploration does not make us naive. Sheppard recognized the steel beneath diplomatic polish. Didn't mean to imply otherwise, Captain. Just explaining why Atlantis operates the way it does. We've seen what happens when you bring archaeologists to a gunfight. Down in Cargo Bay 3, Ronan and Worf had gravitated toward each other with the inevitability of warriors recognizing kindred spirits. They stood before a weapons display. Ronan's particle magnum disassembled on a work surface while Worf examined the energy cell with professional interest. Particle acceleration chamber, Worf observed. Efficient design. What is the effective range? 200 meters with accuracy, Ronan replied. So 400 if you don't mind wasting charges. He gestured to Worf's phaser. Yours? 50 meters optimal, though modifications can extend that. Worf handed the particle magnum back with something approaching reverence. You said the Wraith hunted you for 7 years. They tag runners, track us across planets, hunt for sport. Ronan's voice carried no emotion, facts stated like mission parameters. Killed dozens of them before Sheppard found me. An honorable hunt, Worf said. Then, reconsidering, though honor requires worthy opponents choosing combat, this was persecution. Yeah, Ronan reassembled his weapon with practiced economy. That's why I kill them, every single one I can. Teyla found herself in 10 forward, Atlantis' diplomat navigating Federation social dynamics with the same skill she'd used among Pegasus traders. Ganan stood behind the bar, the enigmatic El Orion, listening with the patience of someone who'd outlived civilizations. Your people have suffered greatly, Ganan observed, sliding a drink across the bar. But you still seek peace when possible. The Athosians learned long ago that survival requires both strength and wisdom, Taylor replied. We trade with many worlds, build alliances, share what knowledge we possess. She sipped the unfamiliar beverage, something fruity and calming. But we also train every child to fight, because the Wraith do not care for wisdom. The Federation has never faced an enemy quite like that, Guinan admitted. Species that view humanity as food. How do you negotiate with that? You don't. Taylor's eyes held ancient sorrow. You destroy them, or they destroy you. There is no middle ground with the Wraith. McKay and Data stood before a holographic display in engineering, the dimensional breach rotating in three-dimensional space between them. Geordi had retreated to supervise warp core maintenance, leaving android and astrophysicist to wrestle with physics that threatened both their universes. The subspace fracture is propagating, Data reported, golden fingers manipulating controls with inhuman precision. At current rates, localized space-time instability will affect a sphere approximately 40 astronomical units in diameter within 96 hours. Meaning what in non-android speak? McKay demanded, though his own tablet showed identical calculations. Meaning warp travel becomes impossible in this region. Transporter technology fails. Eventually, a conventional space becomes unstable enough to tear apart molecular bonds. Data tilted his head. Both our vessels would be destroyed. McKay's face went pale. The breach is getting worse. It's not just collapsing, it's destabilizing everything around it. Correct. Your arrival created a dimensional wound. If left untreated, it will fester. Data pulled up comparative analysis. However, I have identified a potential solution. The breach responds to graviton emissions. By generating a precisely calibrated graviton pulse, we could accelerate the collapse in a controlled manner. Sealing it from this side, McKay finished, brain racing ahead. But that traps Atlantis here permanently. 200 people never seeing home again. The alternative is mutual destruction. Data's positronic brain processed ethics with mathematical clarity. 200 lives versus billions in both universes seems... I know the math, McKay snapped. Then, quieter. I know the math. In the observation lounge, Picard had summoned his senior staff. Sheppard sat with Taylor and Ronan, Atlantis expedition facing Starfleet's finest. The view screen displayed the dimensional breach, exotic particles streaming across the barrier like aurora borealis made of broken reality. Commander Data and Dr. McKay have confirmed the threat, Picard began. The breach must be sealed within 60 hours or space-time integrity fails catastrophically. Which means Atlantis stays here, Sheppard said flatly. No going back to Pegasus. Riker leaned forward. Colonel, we understand the sacrifice. But the Federation can offer asylum. Your people would be welcome. Welcome where? Ronan interrupted. On your ship? Are your planets? His laugh carried bitter edge. We're soldiers. Wraith hunters. What do we do in a universe with no Wraith? You explore, Picard replied simply. You discover. You build lives not defined by war. Taylor's voice cut through tension like a blade. Captain, with respect, you offer us paradise while our people die. In Pegasus, human worlds are culled daily. Children taken, cultures destroyed. Atlantis is the only force preventing complete genocide. We have a responsibility, Sheppard added. The ancients built that city to protect humanity. We inherited that duty when we woke the Wraith. Walking away isn't an option. Troy studied Sheppard's face, empathic senses reading conviction absolute as death. Even if walking away means survival? Even if staying means risking everyone aboard? Especially then. Sheppard met Picard's eyes across command divide. Captain, I've read your records. You've made the hard calls. Sacrifice the few for the many. You know what duty costs. Silence hung heavy as warp core hum. Picard's expression revealed nothing, but his hands clasped tighter behind his back. Tell Data had logged dozens of times, signaling internal conflict. There may be another option, Data's voice came through comm system. Captain, Dr. McKay and I require immediate consultation. The science briefing reconvened in engineering, holographic breach rotating ominously while McKay and Data presented their findings. Sheppard stood with arms crossed, Colonel mask firmly in place. Picard listened with the focused intensity of someone calculating acceptable losses. Means the breach can be sealed from either side, Data explained. However, doing so from the Stargate universe side would require Atlantis to transit while the barrier is actively collapsing. Risk of catastrophic failure, 87.4%. Or we seal it from this side, McKay continued, using the Enterprise's deflector array to generate the necessary graviton pulse. Clean closure, no risk. Except Atlantis never goes home. There is a third option, Data said. Android brain having calculated possibilities, human minds rejected as too dangerous. We could stabilize the breach temporarily, approximately 14 hours, giving Atlantis time to prepare for transit while simultaneously constructing a graviton collapse mechanism on delayed activation. Geordi's visor focused on the calculations. You're talking about threading an impossible needle. Atlantis jumps through a breach that's being held open by our deflector array. Then, the delayed graviton pulse seals it behind them. Timing has to be perfect down to microseconds. 0.003 microseconds, Data corrected. Margin of error is effectively zero. And if we're off by even that much, Riker demanded. McKay pulled up simulation data, his hands shaking slightly. Atlantis gets caught in the collapse. Dimensional shear forces tear the city apart. Everyone dies instantly. The engineering bay fell silent except for warp core pulse. Sheppard stared at the holographic breach, seeing death written in exotic particle streams. Beside him, Tayla's hand moved unconsciously to her necklace. A Thosian prayer gesture older than memory. Eek, 87% failure rate if we try to punch through on our own, Sheppard said slowly. Versus guaranteed survival if we stay, but Pegasus burns. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, Picard quoted softly. Or the one. An old Vulcan saying. Yeah, well, the ancients had a saying too. Sheppard's voice hardened. Vis uban. The power of one. Sometimes one person, one city, one desperate stand is all that stops the darkness. He turned to face Picard directly, military officer to military officer across dimensional and philosophical divides. We're going back, Captain, even if it kills us. Because those people in Pegasus deserve someone willing to die for them. Sheppard's jaw set. I'm asking for your help, not your permission. Will Starfleet help us thread that needle? Admiral Nechayev's face filled the Enterprise view screen. Starfleet Command's calculating gaze, assessing Atlantis through reports and sensor data. Picard stood at attention in the observation lounge, Sheppard beside him at rigid parade rest. Two command styles united by crisis. A city ship from another universe, Nechayev stated, voice flat as tactical assessment. Armed with technology centuries beyond Federation capabilities. Captain Picard, you understand why Starfleet Command has concerns. Admiral, the Atlantis expedition has been cooperative and forthcoming, Picard replied. Their intentions are clear. Return home to continue defending their people. They pose no threat to Federation interests. No threat? Nechayev's eyebrow arched. Our analysts estimate their drone weapons could destroy a Galaxy-class starship in seconds. Their shields withstood full-power phaser strikes during your tests without degradation. One city possesses more firepower than an entire battle fleet. Sheppard stepped forward, military bearing matching Nechayev's command presence. Admiral, respectfully, we're not interested in your fleet. We have a war to fight in our own universe. Help us get home, and you'll never see us again. Unless the breach reopens, Nechayev countered. Unless your war spills into Federation space. The Prime Directive exists to prevent exactly this scenario. Technological contamination from advanced civilizations. The Prime Directive, Picard said carefully, applies to less advanced cultures. Atlantis expedition personnel are human, from Earth. They've simply had access to ancient technology. Technology they're refusing to share, Nechayev noted. Dr. McKay rejected our requests for ZPM specifications and drone weapon schematics. Because giving weapons of mass destruction to people we met 3 days ago seemed like a bad idea, Sheppard said bluntly. No offense, Admiral, but your Federation has never faced the Wraith. You don't know what it costs to fight them. Those weapons stay with us. Silence stretched across subspace channels. Nechaev's expression revealed nothing. Decades of command experience creating perfect political mask. Beside Sheppard, Picard tensed fractionally. Tell so subtle, only years of reading command officers made it visible. Starfleet Command's decision is as follows, Nechaev finally said. The Enterprise will provide technical assistance in sealing the dimensional breach. However, Atlantis will not be permitted to return through it. The risk to Federation security is too great. You're condemning Pegasus to genocide. Taylor's voice cut through from where she stood with the Atlantis delegation. Millions of humans will die without our protection. That is not Starfleet's concern, Nechaev replied. Not unkindly, but absolutely. Our responsibility is to Federation citizens. I'm sorry. The view screen went dark. Sheppard's hands clenched at his sides, knuckles white. Ronan's hand moved to his particle magnum. Satadan instincts recognizing imprisonment, regardless of diplomatic language. Even McKay looked up from his tablet, scientific detachment shattered by political reality. Captain, Sheppard said quietly, dangerously, are you going to follow that order? Picard turned to face him, and for the first time since their meeting, his diplomatic composure cracked. I don't know. The admission hung between them, Starfleet officer acknowledging the gap between orders and conscience. Riker shifted uncomfortably. Troy's empathic senses practically broadcast the ethical conflict radiating from Picard. The Admiral's concerns are not without merit, Data observed from his station. Atlantis does represent potential threat to Federation security. Logically, we should let an entire galaxy burn to protect our own interests, Picard interrupted, voice sharp. Tell me, Mr. Data, where does logic end and morality begin? Data's positronic brain processed the question, finding no clean answer. In Atlantis's control room, Dr. Radek Zelenka studied sensor data with mounting alarm. The dimensional breach wasn't just collapsing, it was collapsing unevenly. Exotic particles streaming asymmetrically across the barrier. Rodney needs to see this, he muttered, fingers flying across ancient interfaces. The city responded to his commands sluggishly. ZPM power levels dropping 0.3% per hour as dimensional instability drained exotic energy from the buffer systems. Major Lorne appeared at his shoulder, P-90 slung across tactical vest. Doc, we've got a problem. Enterprise just moved to intercept position. Shields up, weapons armed. Zelenka's stomach dropped. They are blocking us. Looks like. Lorne's tactical training read, Enterprise's positioning instantly. Captain's maintaining standoff distance, but if we light up the hyperdrive, they'll interpret it as hostile action. Through Atlantis's tower windows, the Enterprise hung in space like judgment. Elegant, powerful, absolutely committed to preventing their escape. Zelenka thought of his sister in Prague, the life he'd left behind to explore ancient mysteries. Thought of Pegasus worlds he'd walked, people he'd helped save from Wraith cullings. Thought of Starfleet Command choosing Federation security over millions of lives. Get me Colonel Sheppard, Zelenka ordered, and start running hyperdrive pre-flight sequences, quietly. Back on Enterprise, Sheppard faced Picard across the observation lounge table. The senior staff had cleared out, leaving only the two commanders and the weight of impossible choices. Your admiral gave you orders, Sheppard said. You going to follow them? Picard stood at the window, staring at Atlantis's gleaming towers. I have spent my career in Starfleet believing in its principles, peaceful exploration, a scientific discovery, the fundamental dignity of all sentient life. He turned. But I have also watched the Borg assimilate worlds. I have seen what happens when we prioritize protocol over conscience. Is that a yes or a no, Captain? It's an acknowledgement that some decisions transcend orders. Picard's voice hardened with resolution. Starfleet Command sees Atlantis as a threat. I see 200 people willing to die for strangers in another universe. I know which deserves my loyalty. Sheppard's tactical mind raced ahead. You help us, you're finished in Starfleet. Court-martial, maybe prison. Perhaps. Picard smiled thinly. But there are principles worth losing rank over, Colonel. Your people taught me that. Then let's figure out how to thread that needle. The comparison crystallized in Crusher's sickbay during a routine medical scan. She stood over Taylor, medical tricorder recording biometric data, when the Athosian woman described a Wraith feeding in clinical detail, hand clamping on chest, life draining in seconds, victims aged decades in moments. My God, Crusher whispered, it's like the Borg. Taylor sat up from the bio bed, confusion crossing her features. Captain Picard mentioned them. Cybernetic collective? They assimilate entire civilizations, strip away individuality, free will, everything that makes you human. Crusher's hands trembled slightly. They turned Captain Picard into one of them, Locatus. Used his knowledge to destroy a fleet at Wolf 359. 11,000 people died. But he survived, Taylor said. He was freed. After months of psychological reconstruction, after becoming the weapon used to murder his own crew. Crusher set the tricorder down. The Wraith take your life. The Borg take your soul. I'm not sure which is worse. The comparison spread through Enterprise like subspace ripple. Geordi discussed it with Data in engineering. Worf mentioned it during security briefing. By the time Picard convened his senior staff, the parallel had become operational framework. Atlantis expedition weren't paranoid militants. They were survivors of sustained campaign against implacable enemy. The Wraith cull human populations like livestock, Picard told his officers. They've done so for 10 millennia. Every world in Pegasus lives under threat of feeding. Atlantis is the only force standing between humanity and extinction. Sounds familiar, Riker said quietly. Everyone present had fought the Borg. Everyone understood existential threat. Commander Data, Picard continued, what would happen if we withdrew our protection from Pegasus? If Atlantis remained here? Data's positronic brain calculated genocidal mathematics. Based on Wraith population estimates and culling frequency provided by the Atlantis expedition, complete extinction of human populations in Pegasus Galaxy would occur within 50 to 75 years. Approximately 4.2 billion casualties. The number settled like lead weight. Troy's empathic senses detected horror from every officer present. Worf's hand clenched unconsciously. Klingon warrior recognizing dishonorable slaughter. 4 billion, Crusher repeated. That's more than died in the Dominion War. And Starfleet Command wants us to let it happen, Riker said, barely contained anger in his voice. To protect Federation interests. The Admiral's concerns are valid, Picard acknowledged. Atlantis does represent unprecedented firepower. The technology aboard that city could revolutionize warfare, or start arms race that destroys the quadrant. He paused. But we have faced this choice before. At Wolf 359, we chose to fight impossible odds. Against the Dominion, we chose to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. Captain, Data interjected, Admiral Nechayev's orders were explicit. Assisting Atlantis' escape constitutes violation of direct command. Court-martial is guaranteed. I am aware, Mr. Data. Picard's voice carried absolute conviction. I am also aware that some principles transcend career considerations. Even the Prime Directive itself states we must protect developing civilizations from extinction. Pegasus isn't Federation territory, Riker noted. Prime Directive might not apply. Then we fall back on older principle, Picard replied. The duty to intervene when genocide is imminent and preventable. Captain Kirk faced similar choice at Organia. So did Captain Archer at Waydon. He met each officer's eyes in turn. I will not abandon 4 billion people to save my career. Worf straightened. Captain, I will help prepare the deflector modifications. It will be my honor. As will I, Data added. Though I feel compelled to note this decision is highly illogical from career preservation standpoint. Noted, Mr. Data. Picard allowed himself small smile. Begin preparations. We have 12 hours before the window closes. On Atlantis, Sheppard gathered his senior staff in the conference room. Zelenka presented the dimensional breach analysis. McKay outlined the transit plan, and Major Lorne provided tactical assessment of Enterprise's intercept position. "So, Enterprise is blocking us," Sheppard summarized. "Starfleet Command ordered them to keep us here, and we've got maybe 10 hours before the breach collapses naturally." He looked around the table. "Options?" "We could fight," Ronan suggested bluntly. "Ancient drones versus their phasers. We'd win." "And murder the people trying to help us," Taylor countered. "Unacceptable." "We could attempt to negotiate with Admiral Nechayev directly," offered Dr. Keller from Medical. "Make humanitarian appeal." "Already tried that," McKay interrupted. "Starfleet's position is clear. They won't risk Federation security for people in another universe." Sheppard stood, pacing to the tower windows. Enterprise hung in space, beautiful and implacable. He thought of Picard's careful words in their last conversation, the way the captain had avoided direct promises but implied willingness to help. "Picard's going to defy orders," Sheppard said suddenly. "He practically told me so. Question is whether we trust him enough to wait." "Trust a man we met 3 days ago with 200 lives?" McKay's voice pitched high. "That's insane." "No more insane than jumping through a collapsing dimensional breach." Sheppard turned back to his team. "Everything about this is impossible odds, but Picard? He gets it. He's fought the Borg. He knows what it means to face enemy that won't stop, won't negotiate, won't let you live." Taylor nodded slowly. "He has honor. I feel it." "Honor doesn't modify deflector arrays," McKay muttered. But he pulled up specifications anyway, calculating power requirements for Enterprise's graviton pulse. "If Picard's really going to help, we need to be ready the second he commits." "Zelenka, prep the hyperdrive," Sheppard ordered. "Lorne, full combat readiness but weapons cold. I don't want Enterprise thinking we're hostile." He looked at his team, scientists and soldiers who'd followed him through 5 years of impossible situations. "And someone send Picard a message. Tell him we're ready when he is." The Borg cube materialized at the edge of the system with the inevitability of death itself. 3 kilometers of geometric precision, darkness studded with alcove lights, and technology stripped from 1,000 assimilated worlds. "Red alert!" Worf's voice boomed across Enterprise Bridge. "Borg vessel detected, bearing 317 Mark 8. Distance, 4.2 light-years, and closing." Picard's blood went cold, despite years of command discipline. His hand moved unconsciously to his chest, phantom memory of Borg implants beneath Starfleet uniform. "Scan for other vessels. They rarely travel alone." "Negative, Captain," Data reported, fingers flying across Ops console. "Single cube, standard configuration. Speed, warp 9.7. Estimated arrival, 43 minutes." On Atlantis, alarms shrieked through the city. For Sheppard sprinted to the control room where McKay stood before sensor displays showing something impossible. A massive cube of unknown design, energy signature off every scale the ancient sensors recognized. "What the hell is that?" Sheppard demanded. "Borg," McKay breathed, face pale. "I pulled specs from Enterprise's database yesterday. Cybernetic collective that assimilates entire species. That cube carries hundreds of thousands of drones, adaptive shields, cutting beams that slice through hull plating, and tactical adaptability that makes them nearly impossible to defeat." Zelenka pulled up comparative analysis. "Ancient drones should be effective. Technology operates on principles Borg have never encountered." "Maybe," McKay interrupted. Or maybe they adapt in 30 seconds like they do to everything else, and we become target practice." The communication channel crackled. Picard's voice, steady despite underlying tension. "Colonel Sheppard, we have a situation." Sheppard and Taylor beamed aboard Enterprise minutes later, materializing on the bridge. The view screen showed the Borg cube approaching with relentless geometry, its surface crawling with ominous green energy. "They're not hailing," Picard explained, standing from his command chair. "They're scanning. Both vessels. In approximately 37 minutes, they'll arrive and attempt assimilation." "Why now?" Sheppard asked. "Coincidence?" "The Borg do not believe in coincidence," Data replied. "The dimensional breach generates exotic particles detectable across several light-years. Such technology would be considered highly desirable for assimilation." They want the ancient tech, Taylor realized. They sensed something new and came to take it. Picard nodded grimly. And they will not be dissuaded by diplomacy. I know. I was one of them. The bridge fell silent. Sheppard studied Picard with new understanding. The nightmares behind diplomatic composure, the personal stakes in facing the Borg again. How many times have you fought them? Sheppard asked. Twice in direct combat. Wolf 359, where I was Locatus. Then later, in the Alpha Quadrant. Picard's jaw tightened. We won both times, but barely. The Borg adapt to every weapon, every tactic. They learn and counter within seconds. Sounds like they've never met ancient drones. Sheppard's tactical mind shifted into combat mode. Our weapons use different principles, directed energy drawn from vacuum energy fluctuations, not particle beams or torpedoes. They might not adapt as quickly. Or they adapt instantly and assimilate Atlantis, McKay countered over comm channel. Those drones are ancient technology. If the Borg get even one intact example, they won't. Sheppard cut him off. Because we're not letting them close enough. He turned to Picard. Captain, our city's shields withstood Wraith hive ship bombardments. How do they compare to Borg cutting beams? Data ran calculations. Insufficient data for accurate comparison. However, Borg cutting beams operate through adaptive frequency modulation. Ancient shields function on entirely different principles. Translation, they might hold, Riker finished. Me or they might not. One way to find out. Sheppard moved to tactical display, years of military training assessing vectors and firing solutions. We position Atlantis here between the Borg and Enterprise. They want ancient tech? They face ancient weapons first. You would protect us? Picard's surprise was genuine. We're preventing your escape. Starfleet Command ordered us to contain you. Yeah, and you're about to ignore those orders to help us anyway. Sheppard met Picard's eyes. Besides, the Borg are everybody's problem. Wraith taught us that. When the predators come, humans stick together or we all die. Worf growled approval. A warrior's wisdom. Captain, Data interjected. The Borg cube has altered course. Now on direct intercept vector for Atlantis. They have identified it as primary target. They know it's the prize, Geordi said from engineering via comm. Enterprise is standard federation. Atlantis is ancient technology they've never assimilated. Picard made his decision with the certainty of command forged in fire. Mr. Worf, advise Starfleet Command of Borg incursion. Inform them we are engaging in defense of Allied vessel. He paused. Omit the part about Allied vessel trying to escape through dimensional breach. Aye, Captain. Worf's smirk was distinctly Klingon. Colonel, coordinate with Commander Data on combined tactical approach. Mr. LaForge, divert all available power to shields and weapons. Picard settled into his command chair, fingers steepling. We have 32 minutes to devise strategy against an enemy that has defeated us before. Then we use what they haven't seen, Sheppard replied, tactical confidence replacing earlier tension. Ancient drones move at 0.97 light speed. They're controlled by mental interface through the gene. They can't be jammed, spoofed, or intercepted by conventional countermeasures. And the Borg have never faced ancient technology, Taylor added. They cannot adapt to what they have not encountered. They will adapt, Picard warned. But perhaps not before we do sufficient damage. He stood. Let's show them what happens when two civilizations stand together. Atlantis hung in space like an ancient promise made steel, its towers gleaming against the dimensional breach's exotic shimmer. The city's shields flared to full strength, drawing 70% of remaining ZPM capacity into a bubble of distorted spacetime that had withstood Wraith bombardments for 10,000 years. Inside the control chair room, Sheppard reclined into ancient technology, the neural interface flooding his consciousness with tactical data. 2,000 drones stirred in their hidden bays, responding to his thoughts like extensions of his own will. Through the chair's sensors, he felt Enterprise maneuvering to flanking position, felt the dimensional breach bleeding reality, felt the Borg cube approaching with geometric certainty. Contact in 90 seconds, McKay reported from the control room, voice tight. Their adaptive shields are already cycling through frequencies. They know we're here. Let them know, Sheppard muttered. The drones launched in streams of golden light, 12 weapons arrowing toward the Borg cube at near light speed. Ancient technology, built when humanity was young, meeting cybernetic collective that had assimilated galaxies. The drones struck before Borg sensors registered their approach. 12 direct impacts, and 12 sections of the cube's hull exploded into vacuum, ancient weapons punching through adaptive shields like they weren't there. Direct hits, Data reported from Enterprise. Borg shields ineffective against drone weapons. Their adaptation algorithms cannot compensate for, he paused. They are modulating shield frequencies, or attempting to match drone energy signatures. Good luck with that, Sheppard said, launching 18 more drones. The weapons responded to his thoughts, weaving through space in patterns no computer could predict because they weren't following programs. They were following human intuition. The second wave struck. 15 impacts. 3 drones intercepted by hastily erected tractor beams, but the cube's hull integrity dropped to 68% in seconds. Impossible, breathed Geordi, watching from Enterprise Engineering. They should have adapted by now. They always adapt. Ancient technology operates outside conventional physics, Data explained, monitoring the engagement. The drones extract energy from vacuum fluctuations at quantum level. There is no frequency to adapt to. Each weapon draws from unique quantum signature. The Borg response was immediate and overwhelming. Cutting beams lanced from the cube's surface, emerald energy slicing toward Atlantis with adaptive precision. The city's shields flared, ancient technology meeting Borg, assimilation imperative, and held. Shields at 89%, McKay reported, disbelief in his voice. They're not penetrating. The ancients built these shields to withstand. The second volley of cutting beams struck, concentrated fire from 16 emitters. Atlantis's shields dropped to 71%. Warning klaxons shrieked through the control room. They're adapting to the shields, Zelenka called out, modulating beam frequencies to match ancient energy matrix. I'm another 30 seconds and they penetrate. Not getting 30 seconds, Sheppard growled. 40 drones launched simultaneously, Golden Swarm dividing into attack patterns pulled from air combat training, and ancient tactical databases downloaded directly into his consciousness. The chair wasn't just controlling the drones, it was making him the weapon system. The drones struck in synchronized waves, targeting the cube's cutting beam emitters with surgical precision. Ancient technology had no artificial intelligence to hack, no computer core to assimilate, just directed energy responding to human thought at speeds cybernetic systems couldn't match. Enterprise now, Picard's voice cut through tactical chaos. The Federation starship opened fire, quantum torpedoes and phaser arrays hammering sections weakened by drone strikes. And the combination was devastating. Ancient weapons breached shields, Federation firepower exploited the gaps. The Borg cube shuddered. Massive structure bleeding atmosphere and drones into vacuum. But it didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The collective mind processed damage, adapted tactics, launched transport beams toward Atlantis' towers. They're trying to beam aboard, Lorne shouted from Tactical. 50 coordinates targeted across the city. Atlantis' ancient transporters activated automatically, defensive protocols 10 millennia old, recognizing invasion attempt. The Borg materialization sequences met ancient containment fields and failed. Energy matrices built to transport matter across galaxies simply refused to accept the Borg's pattern. Their transporters can't penetrate our systems, McKay said, wonder cutting through fear. The ancients built safeguards against unauthorized beam-in. The Borg signatures aren't recognized. On Enterprise, Picard watched the engagement with command officers' clinical assessment and survivors' visceral memory. The Borg were losing. Actually losing to combined ancient Federation assault, their adaptation abilities meeting technology so fundamentally different, they couldn't compensate fast enough. Captain, Data reported, Borg cube structural integrity at 31%. They are attempting to withdraw. Don't let them. Sheppard's voice carried cold certainty. They adapt. They learn. If even one cube escapes with sensor data on ancient weapons, every Borg in the galaxy will know how to counter them. Picard understood immediately. The Wraith had taught Atlantis expedition a harsh lesson. Predators that survive learn. Mercy meant future genocide. All weapons, continuous fire, Picard ordered. Target their propulsion systems. Enterprise and Atlantis attacked in concert. Federation precision and ancient overwhelming force combining against cybernetic collective. The Borg cube tried to regenerate, adaptive systems struggling to compensate for weapons beyond their experience. They failed. The cube exploded in cascade of secondary detonations, 3 kilometers of assimilated technology fragmenting into debris field. Sheppard felt it through the chair's sensors. Geometric precision shattering into chaos. Hundreds of thousands of Borg drones dying without understanding what killed them. Silence settled across both vessels. On Enterprise, the crew stared at view screen showing destruction impossible by their own technology. On Atlantis, McKay ran diagnostics confirming what sensors reported. The Borg were gone. Shield status, Sheppard called, pulling consciousness back from the chair. 63% and holding, Zelenka replied. No Borg signatures detected. ZPM power at 41%. Sheppard stood, legs shaky from a neural interface. Through the tower windows, the dimensional breach still shimmered, now 38 minutes from collapse. Enterprise, he transmitted. Nice shooting. Now how about helping us get home before that window closes? The dimensional breach twisted in space like a wound in reality. Exotic particles streaming across the barrier in patterns that made McKay's calculations increasingly desperate. 31 minutes remained before complete collapse. 31 minutes to coordinate the most precise transit attempt in either universe's history. The deflector array is ready, Geordi reported from Enterprise Engineering, golden visor reflecting holographic displays. Graviton pulse generators calibrated to 0.003 microsecond precision. But Captain, if we're off by even that margin, Atlantis gets torn apart across dimensional boundaries, Picard finished. I'm aware, Commander. Proceed. On Atlantis, Zelenka supervised hyperdrive preparations with the controlled panic of someone calculating their own survival odds. Rodney, the ZPM power reserves are at 39% after Borg engagement. Hyperdrive requires minimum 42% for dimensional transit. I know, McKay snapped, fingers flying across ancient interfaces. I'm rerouting power from non-essential systems. Life support drops to minimum. Internal transporters offline. Recreational facilities dark. We have recreational facilities? Ronan asked from where he stood guard. Particle magnum ready for threats that couldn't be shot. Not the point. McKay pulled up power distribution grids. Even with everything stripped down, we're at 40.3%. We need another 1.7% or the hyperdrive fails mid-transit. Sheppard stood at the control room's central console, the city responding to his presence through ancient gene connection. He felt Atlantis like an extension of his own body. Power flowing through conduits, shields maintaining integrity, sensors tracking the breach's collapse rate. 10,000 years of ancient engineering, and it all came down to 1.7%. What about the drones? He asked suddenly. We launched maybe 80 during the fight. That's 80 weapons not drawing standby power. Zelenka's eyes widened. The drone bays. Yes. Each bay maintains charging field even when drones are deployed. If we shut down the empty bays, his fingers raced across calculations. 1.4% recovered. Not enough, McKay said. We're still 0.3 short. Taylor stepped forward, Athosian pragmatism cutting through technical debate. The shield is at 63% strength. Can we lower it to minimum necessary level? The shield draws proportional power, Zelenka explained, but lowering it during dimensional transit means any instability could kill us all. Yes, I know. McKay ran the numbers, face pale. Dropping shields to 30% gives us the extra 0.3. But if we hit unexpected turbulence in the breach, we die, Sheppard finished. Or we stay here and Pegasus dies. Not much of a choice. He turned to his team, the people who'd followed him through 5 years of impossible situations. Anyone want to vote on this? Democracy is overrated, Ronan said simply. We fight or we run. You taught me we fight. Indeed, Lorne added, unconsciously echoing Teal's favorite word. The SGC veteran had learned long ago that some missions required faith over certainty. McKay stared at his tablet, and then at the people around him, scientists and soldiers who'd become family in an alien galaxy. Fine, but if we die, I'm haunting you all. He input the final commands. Power reserves now at 42.1%. Hyperdrive ready. On Enterprise, Data coordinated with McKay through subspace channel. Android precision matching ancient technology's demands. Transit window opens in 14 minutes, 47 seconds. Dr. McKay, you must initiate hyperdrive at precisely that moment. I'm aware of the timing, Commander, literally a computer, McKay shot back, stress sharpening his tongue. Deflector array will generate graviton pulse upon Atlantis's departure, Data continued, unperturbed by sarcasm. The pulse propagates at light speed. See, reaching the breach aperture point 002 microseconds after Atlantis clears the threshold. Meaning if we're slow, the breach collapses on us, Sheppard summarized. And if we're fast, we outrun the stabilization field and get sheared anyway. Correct, Data confirmed. The margin of error is effectively zero. Picard's voice cut through the channel, carrying command weight and something deeper. Respect forged in combat. Colonel Sheppard, I want you to know that regardless of Starfleet Command's orders, this crew believes you're doing the right thing. Pegasus deserves defenders. Those 4 billion people deserve someone willing to risk everything for them. Appreciated, Captain. Sheppard felt the weight of 200 lives pressing down on his shoulders. For what it's worth, your Federation could use more officers like you. See ones who remember duty goes beyond orders. Perhaps we'll meet again someday, Picard replied, if dimensional barriers prove less permanent than physics suggests. Yeah, Sheppard allowed himself a small smile. I'd like that. In Enterprise's observation lounge, Picard stood with his senior staff, watching Atlantis through the windows. Riker had already drafted the official report. Engagement with Borg Cube, tactical alliance with unknown vessel, enemy destroyed. No mention of dimensional breaches or defied orders. Admiral Nechayev will know what we did, Riker said quietly. Court-martial is still guaranteed. Let them come, Picard replied. I have been to hell and back as Locatus. I have ordered people to their deaths. I have made choices that haunt my dreams. He turned to face his crew. But I have never abandoned 4 billion people to genocide to preserve my career. I will not start now. Troy's empathic senses detected absolute conviction. Worf's honor recognized kindred spirit. Even Data's positronic brain processed the logic of conscience transcending regulation. 5 minutes, Data announced. Atlantis hyperdrive charging, deflector array standing by. On Atlantis, Sheppard moved through the city one last time, the ancient technology singing through his gene connection. He passed the mess hall where his people had shared meals, the jumper bay where he'd learned to fly, the corridors that had become home. 10 seconds, McKay called out. Hyperdrive at full charge, shields minimum. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Sheppard returned to the control room, standing at the central console. Through the windows, our Enterprise held position, Federation starship and ancient city ship united one final time. 3, 2, 1. Mark! Atlantis leaped into hyperspace. The dimensional breach convulsed around Atlantis like a living thing dying, exotic particles tearing at shields reduced to 30% capacity. Through the control chair's neural interface, Sheppard felt every stress point, every microscopic fluctuation in the barrier between universes threatening to rip the city apart. Shields at 28%, McKay screamed over alarms, shrieking through every corridor. Structural integrity field compensating, but we're losing conduit junctions on Pier 3. The city shuddered. 10,000 years of ancient engineering straining against forces that shouldn't exist. Through the tower windows, reality itself fractured. Star Trek's ordered cosmos bleeding into Stargate's ancient mysteries. Two universes rejecting each other like incompatible blood types. Our hyperdrive holding, Zelenka reported, hands white-knuckled on his console. But the dimensional turbulence is increasing. We are experiencing shear forces the ancients never designed for. Because the ancients had never been insane enough to punch through collapsing dimensional barriers at fractional light speed. Behind them, Enterprise's deflector array pulsed with precisely calibrated graviton emissions. Data's android calculations holding the breach open for exactly 0.003 microseconds longer than physics allowed. The margin between salvation and annihilation measured in time frames, human consciousness couldn't perceive. Sheppard gripped the chair's armrests, his ancient gene connection allowing him to feel the city's pain. Hull plating buckled on the lower piers. Power conduits overloaded across 17 levels, when the shield generators screamed warnings about imminent cascade failure. "Come on," he whispered to Atlantis, to the ancients who'd built her, to physics itself. "Just a little further." The dimensional barrier contracted around them like a fist closing. For one infinite microsecond, Atlantis existed in both universes simultaneously, Stargate's familiar constellations overlapping Star Trek's ordered Federation space. Sheppard saw it through the chair, reality doubled and contradictory and impossible. Then the graviton pulse caught them from behind, a wave of exotic particles accelerating their transit those final crucial meters. The breach collapsed with a soundless scream of tortured spacetime, dimensional barriers slamming shut with the finality of death. Atlantis erupted into Pegasus space. The city's shields failed immediately, for 30% capacity exhausted by dimensional shear. Alarms cascaded through every system. Half the lights went dark. Life support dropped to emergency reserves. But through the tower windows, stars shone in familiar configurations. The constellations Sheppard had learned during 5 years of gate travel, the sky that meant home. "Status," he barked, pulling consciousness from the chair. "We made it," McKay said, disbelief and hysteria mixing in his voice. "We actually made it. Shields offline, hyperdrive burned out, ZPM reserves at 11%, but we're alive and we're in Pegasus." Cheers erupted across the control room. Zelenka slumped in his chair, muttering prayers in Czech. Lorne's Marines broke protocol to embrace each other. Even Ronan allowed himself a fierce grin. He a Saturdan warrior, acknowledging victory against impossible odds. Taylor moved to the windows, tears streaming down her face as she looked at stars that held her people, her culture, the galaxy she'd sworn to protect. "We are home," she whispered. "Against all reason, we are home." Sheppard stood on shaking legs, moving to stand beside her. The city floated in space above an uninhabited world, sensors already detecting gate addresses and familiar energy signatures. 3 systems away, a Wraith hive ship patrolled standard culling routes, unaware that their greatest enemy had just returned from another universe. "McKay, how long until we're combat ready?" Sheppard asked, Colonel Mask sliding back into place. "Are you insane? We nearly died. The hyperdrive needs complete rebuild. Shield generators require—" "How long?" Rodney?" McKay met his eyes and saw the truth. They were home, but the war hadn't stopped. Wraith didn't care about dimensional breaches or Federation philosophy or impossible choices. They only cared about feeding. 72 hours for basic shields and weapons, McKay said quietly. Full repairs, 3 weeks minimum. Good enough. Sheppard activated the citywide comm. "This is Colonel Sheppard. We've returned to Pegasus Galaxy. I know you're exhausted. I know what we just survived was impossible. But there are worlds out there that need us. People who depend on Atlantis to stand between them and the Wraith." He paused, choosing words carefully. "We met good people in that other universe. People who believed in exploration and peace and the dignity of all sentient life. They helped us get home when they could have kept us safe. Might we owe it to them, and to ourselves, to make sure Pegasus survives? To prove that their risk was worth it." Through the city, 200 voices responded with determination, forged in 5 years of survival. They'd crossed universes, fought Borg, defied Starfleet admirals, and threaded needles measured in microseconds. Fighting Wraith seemed almost simple by comparison. Almost. "Lorne, get me a tactical assessment of nearby systems," Sheppard ordered. "Zelenka, prioritize shield repairs. McKay, see if you can coax another 5% out of the ZPMs." He turned to Taylor and Ronan. "And someone start checking in with our allies. Let them know Atlantis is back." "They will celebrate," Taylor said, smile breaking through tears. "The Athosians, the Genii, the Travelers, all will know hope returns." Ronan checked his particle magnum, a familiar weight reassuring after Federation phasers and Borg cutting beams. "Good. I've got 5 years of Wraith to hunt. Time to get back to work." As his team dispersed to their duties, Sheppard remained at the windows watching Pegasus stars. Somewhere in another universe, Enterprise was reporting to Starfleet Command, Picard facing consequences for choosing conscience over orders. The captain would stand court-martial, might lose his command. All because he believed 4 billion lives in another dimension mattered. "Thank you, Captain," Sheppard said to the stars, knowing Picard would never hear. Indeed. The dimensional breach had sealed. 2 universes separated by barriers that shouldn't be crossed. But for one impossible moment, ancient technology and Federation idealism had stood together against darkness. Oh, Atlantis would remember. And Pegasus would survive because of it. The city's sensors detected the Wraith hive changing course, moving toward inhabited system for scheduled culling. Sheppard's expression hardened. 11% ZPM power. No shields. Hyperdrive offline. 200 exhausted people and 1 battered city against galactic threat. Standard Tuesday in Pegasus. "Lorne," he called. "Plot intercept course for that hive ship. Let's show them Atlantis is home." The months following Atlantis' return passed in familiar rhythm. Gate missions to allied worlds, skirmishes with Wraith patrols, McKay complaining about repair schedules while somehow exceeding them. The dimensional breach left no trace in Pegasus space, physics reasserting normal constants as if Star Trek's universe had been fever dream. But in quiet moments, Sheppard found himself wondering about Enterprise. Had Picard survived the court-martial? Did Data still calculate impossible odds with android precision? Did the Federation remember the ancient city that proved exploration sometimes required warriors willing to fight? Taylor taught Athosian children about the people beyond the stars, who'd helped Atlantis return, turning dimensional crisis into cultural legend. Ronan kept a piece of Borg debris he'd salvaged, reminder that Wraith weren't the galaxy's only predators. McKay published classified paper on dimensional mechanics that 3 people in 2 universes understood. And on distant Earth, through the Stargate program's vast database, Dr. Daniel Jackson discovered ancient text referencing travelers between worlds, cosmic anomaly theory suggesting dimensional barriers might not be as permanent as physics claimed. In both universes, scientists studied the impossible. Warriors prepared for new threats. Explorers dreamed of reunion. The dimensional breach had closed. But the connection between 2 philosophies, ancient military precision and Federation exploratory idealism, had been forged in combat against Borg Collective. That connection transcended physics. Somewhere in the quantum foam, where dimensional barriers shifted like ocean waves, 2 universes remained aware of each other. Atlantis stood guard over Pegasus while Enterprise explored Alpha Quadrant. Different galaxies, different challenges, same fundamental truth. When darkness threatens, humanity stands together. The Wraith learned this lesson again and again as Atlantis prosecuted its war with renewed purpose. Every world saved, every hive destroyed, every human life preserved, honored the debt owed to Captain Picard and his crew. And perhaps, if dimensional barriers proved less absolute than believed, if ancient technology and Federation science found convergence point, if exploration's infinite diversity met military necessity's absolute conviction, perhaps Colonel Sheppard and Captain Picard would stand together again. But that story awaits in probabilities not yet collapsed, dimensions not yet breached, adventures still written in the quantum uncertainty of what might be. For now, Atlantis flies, Enterprise explores, and the cosmos holds its breath. Indeed, more stories await.